Okay, I think we're ready now. We have begun the recording, and I'm going to hit slideshow so that you will not see everything. Can you now see the slides and still see me?
Yes.
Yeah, we're good now, Margaret.
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. Okay, so welcome to Momentum, which is we're very excited about. We have a special guest from Washington, D.C. with us today. Very excited to welcome him to our so we're very excited to welcome you to Momentum. So thank you for joining us. We have a nice group that's here in person, as well as many of you online. So we're going to get started. Momentum is one of the programs that Center for Creative Economy hosts. I'm the founder, Margaret Collins. We do these monthly events, both in person and virtual. So today we are focusing on leveraging mindfulness to optimize your focus. And you're going to have a real treat to get to meet Raul Kulkarni. So today we're going to ask if you would just put any questions that you have in the chat, and he will answer them during the Q&A unless he invites you to have questions. That'll be up to him if he wants questions before that. And if you are joining virtually, please stay muted so that we can make sure that everybody can hear and we don't have any feedback. After the event, we're going to send a quick survey, and we ask, would you please take that and let us know what you thought of the event and the information, and it won't take you long to complete it. And that helps us get good feedback on our programs. So we have a monthly program. It's called Momentum, and we meet every month, most months, not every month, and also have a directory. And it's a wonderful way of coming together. Sometimes we meet at lunch. We also meet in the evenings. It's a great way for creatives to come together and ideate, to share what you're doing and learn what others are doing, and then figure out how you might be able to collaborate. It's all about breaking down silos and bringing people together. So that's what Momentum is. And we do have a membership. It's a monthly membership. You could do it monthly or annually. It's very easy to join. You can reach out to Cami at CCE Triad if you're interested in becoming a member. We want to share with you that we have the 10th anniversary of the Center for Creative Economy coming up. It'll be on May the 24th. We are having a major celebration event at the Ramcat. There'll be a performance showcase, a photography showcase, and a product showcase, and it's called Shine. So you can get tickets on our website at CCETriad/Shine. It's going to be a really fun event, and we hope you will join us. So we aren't having a Momentum event in May. Shine is our culmination of our 10th anniversary, and we're very excited to be hosting this. And as part of that, we have a photography contest, and we're asking photographers. So if you are a photographer, you would like to participate, there's a chance to win $100 and a ticket to Shine. Just you go onto ccetriad.com/photog, and you upload your photos there, and all the information of what we're looking for is there. We ask you to take photos that depict the images of the thoughts around momentum, velocity, and kinetic. Those are all motion words, and they are the names of the programs that we run here at CCE. So the deadline is April 29th, so that's tomorrow. So please tell anybody that you know that's a photographer. You just have to be based in the Triad. It's a Triad opportunity. Okay. Any questions before we start? Okay. So, oh, okay, that's the beginning. All right. So, okay, we'll just leave that up then. So I'm going to now introduce Raul. Raul is the Chief Executive Officer of Suki. He was in our Velocity Accelerator in 2021 and was one of our winners of the in the program. He did very well. He's very experienced in his field. He has a background in employee wellness, mindfulness, and mental health. He's also a former McKinsey consultant, and he's worked in global health and has facilitated group sessions in Boston. Also, he's been featured at Harvard, the World Bank, and at Microsoft. He studied clinical psychology at Tufts and abnormal psychology at Cornell, which is why he's so good with creatives. He understands the normal and the abnormal, and he's received an MBA from MIT. So we are thrilled that he could join us as an alumni of our accelerator. And we're honored to welcome him today. So Raul, if you want to share your screen, you can begin.
Appreciate that introduction. Let me know when you can see my screen, if that looks all right for everybody.
Yep.
Okay, well, welcome.
See it, Raul, that's great, perfect.
Perfect. So for the next 45 minutes, what we are going to do is a deep dive into what exactly mindfulness is, why it's so important right now, and how we can apply this on a day-to-day. And so to begin, I'm going to invite you to separate yourself from the rest of the day. You can do this by doing two things. Number one, if you do have a pair of headphones, if you're joining us online, this is a great opportunity to get that pair of headphones. They can be extremely helpful to making sure if you have a dog barking, if you have a partner or roommate talking, that you're not going to hear them, because we are actually going to be doing some practice and we're going to be going deep. We're going to be using this music that you hear in the background. It might sound like you're at a relaxing spa. That's the vibe that we're going for. And we're going to utilize my voice as well as this music to actually enter a meditative state. So having headphones can certainly help. And number two, what I'm going to ask you to do is just take one deep cleansing breath. And how you're going to do that is just inhale through the nose, exhale through your mouth. And when you exhale, you're going to imagine tension, judgment, and negativity. Those three things, they're going to be physically, viscerally leaving your body. So together, let's take that one deep breath, separate the week from right now, breathe in. Big out. Allowing ourselves to arrive in this present moment. Let's begin. My name is Rahul, and let's use the chat to get us started. I'm curious for this audience right now, what does mindful mean? If someone is telling you they're being mindful, or you are trying to become more mindful, what are some of the words that come to mind? How do you become more mindful? What does that even mean? And so let's see if we can get a couple of responses to get us started. Feel free to put them in the chat. All right, thank you, Jess, for starting us off. We have, well, it's being present, right? So you're not living in the past. As a psychologist, we say, well, if you are fixated on the past, well, that allows you to dwell, and that allows you to have more depressive thoughts. Now, if you're fixated on the future, well, that's going to lead to anxiety, right? That's going to lead to stress. However, if we can find ourselves in that present moment, that's really where we can excel. One of those bumper sticker sayings that I just love, though, is, well, right now is a gift. That's why they call it the present. And so being present is going to be really important. Becoming self-aware, absolutely. There's this awareness when you're practicing mindfulness. It's really going from, well, I'm just operating on muscle memory to being completely aware. And what I'm going to ask is, if you are joining virtually, that you just kindly mute yourself, just so we can have a little bit of silence. We're going to be doing some meditation, things like that. But don't worry, we're going to keep this interactive. We're going to keep it using the chat in order to talk. Okay, so now that we have some idea on what mindfulness is, let's practice our first step of being mindful by setting some norms for today. We already talked about one, just making sure that you're on mute. Number two will be, let's do a mindful phone check, right? And what I want everyone to do is ask themselves, where's my phone right now? Chances are it's not more than a foot away from you. Now, let me introduce some research right now about the pull that technology has on our brains in terms of our own cognitive bandwidth. So they did a study with high schoolers where they were taking the SATs. Now, they had a group that could use their smartphones. They had a group where that smartphone was upwards. They had a group where the smartphone was facing downwards, and they had a group where that smartphone was in a different room. I want to ask you, what do you think at a macro level? Well, what were the results of that study? Well, it was the farther away your phone is, the better as a collective that group did. That means there was even a statistical difference between your phone facing upwards versus facing downwards. All right, we are a generation right now that is constantly on call, right? There might be a text that's coming, there might be an email that's coming. And so the first step of becoming present is being cognitive of our relationship with technology. And that's very much includes our phone. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is do a phone check right now. Take your phone, put it in a deep, dark corner away from you. And so if it's in your pocket or if it's in the desk, and if you're joining online, use this as an opportunity to close out your inbox. It feels really good to just close it out. You've protected this next 40 minutes to be present, to be here right now. So just allow yourself to do that. Another thing I'm going to ask is, we are going to be trying out techniques that maybe you haven't tried out before. But the thing about these techniques is, well, they're thousands of years old. And on top of that, it's not theory, it's experiential. You don't have to believe me that any of these things are going to work for you. But what I want you to do is be open and actually try them out to see if these actually work for you. Then finally, let's focus on compassion when there's so much uncertainty in the world right now, economic, geopolitical, all of these things that are causing us stress. We're still very much living in a pandemic. And so instead, let's focus on, well, how do we approach it with compassion? How do we approach each other with compassion and make that the vibe of today's journey? And with that, those are the norms for today. Let's get started on this mindfulness presentation. I'm going to do a really quick intro about myself as it relates to mindfulness. Now, I have always been obsessed with happiness. That's why I started a company that's all about building happiness. And that's why I studied clinical psychology. But my obsession with mindfulness really came from my time at MIT. They have a phrase there. It's called, you're drinking water from a fire hose. Now, you might have experienced similar feelings. It means that we are going to intentionally overwhelm you. You're going to drink water from that fire hose. Now, that makes it extremely difficult to have a balanced life. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of intelligent people to feel insecure about. And the standards are extremely high there. And because of that, I was starting to feel burnt out while I was there. For the first time, I was having trouble sleeping. Before that, as soon as my head hit the pillow, I was out. And suddenly it was about deadlines. Suddenly I was thinking about the stress. I was thinking about what I had to do, if I could do it. And after I graduated, I asked my mentor there, well, you know what? I am going from one pressure cooker to the next. I'm about to be a strategy consultant for McKinsey. What do? I want to spend that time wisely without skipping a beat. He said, well, do Vipassana. Vipassana is 10 days of silence. You're not allowed to talk for 10 days. And you meditate about 10 hours a day. And so I went to India, I went to a Buddhist ashram, and that was my first deep dive into mindfulness training. I used that mental fitness training to help me as a strategy consultant. And now we teach it to over 50 corporate clients, including Amazon, including Microsoft, including Morgan Stanley. These are techniques that are validated. These are ones that are meant to immediately make you feel more at ease and to calm your fight or flight response that makes you feel that there's a problem or a threat around you. That's what we're going to be focusing on. And so to begin today, what I'm going to ask you to do is simply we're going to do 4 deep cleansing breaths in a yogic stance. And from that place, we're going to enter in our minds, which is called the theta state. Now, the theta state in terms of your neurology or your brain waves is a calm state that is creative in nature. It's the state that you reach right before you're about to fall asleep. It is such an important state that even the inventor Thomas Edison, he actually used to enter that state without even knowing it. What he would do is he would sit in his favorite chair and he would have a metal ball in his hand, and there would be a tray right underneath that metal ball. He would rock himself until he was about to fall asleep, and when he would drop that ball and then it would hit that metal plate and he would wake up. That's where he would do his best thinking. That's where he made inventions that absolutely changed American society as well as the world. That's the state that we can enter ourselves very quickly, right? And so we're going to do 4 cleansing breaths. We're going to enter a calmer state, right? And from that state, we're just going to ask ourselves a couple questions to get started with today's presentation. So to enter that state, what I want you to do is just edge to the edge of your seat, to take your hands, to put them on your knees facing the floor. What I want you to do is to uncross your legs if they're uncrossed, and I want you to sit up straight, to have an alert back, yet relaxed. And I simply want you to notice the room around you. Notice details. Smudges, hues of color, things you weren't looking at before. Grounding yourself in this present moment. And then, like drapes over a window, I invite you to close your eyes. And again, we're going to take 4 deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. And when you exhale, tension leaving the body. Breathing in, out. Breathing in, out. In. Out. In. Out. Taking a moment to see how your body feels right now. Do you feel heavy, or do you feel light? Do you feel restless, or do you feel calm? Taking one more deep breath in, out. When you're ready, slowly opening your eyes. Welcome back. Seeing that just a minute we can calm that sympathetic nervous response. Back in the day, we used to think it was a one-way street. Our minds, when they felt threatened or when we had negative thoughts, that would trigger our fight or flight response. And that would then increase our heart rate so that we could get blood to our muscles, so we could get ready to fight. It would also increase our respiratory rate so that we could get oxygen to our muscles, so that we could be ready to fight or flee a danger. Now, what we know as psychologists is that when we have a threat to our ego, our threat to our sense of self, the same thing happens as a physical threat. The same response happens. However, what we know now is that it's a two-way street. Not only do our thoughts, well, they affect our respiratory rate, but at the same time, there's a group of cells right at the base of our spine, where our spine hits our brains, that can actually sense, well, if I am breathing and exhaling calmly, collectively, having elongated breaths, well, that is telling my mind that even though I am thinking I am in danger, that I'm threatened, actually the opposite is true. I'm actually at home. I'm actually safe. I'm so safe, in fact, I could fall asleep right now, right? And so we have the ability to self-soothe. We have the ability to actually transform our mental state into a more calm and collective state. Now, this can be extremely beneficial when you're feeling emotionally overwhelmed, when you have a big presentation you have to do at work, when you're feeling angry at your partner, right? Is our ability to actually regulate our own emotional responses. That's what we're going to be focusing on today. All right, so we have about half an hour left. And so what we're going to do is talk a little bit more about the science of mindfulness. We're going to end with another mindfulness exercise as well, but we're also going to talk about it in the private sector. But throughout it, I'm going to be answering questions. I want this to feel interactive. And so if you have a question or a comment at any period of time, feel free to use the chat. Let's open it up right now for our first series of questions. Does anyone have any questions or comments about the first exercise we did, as well as what mindfulness actually is, and some of the use cases for it? I'll give it a minute to see if there's any questions, and then we're going to do a deeper dive into the actual practice. All right. Well, I'm not seeing anything yet, but hopefully people are feeling relaxed. Hopefully people are feeling focused, and they have a better sense of what mindfulness actually is. So let's get started. Mindfulness, my favorite definition of it is from going from autopilot to becoming extremely self-aware of what you are doing, right? Oftentimes in life, we are operating on muscle memory, right? We are just going through the notions of life, acting a similar way, without actually really trying to think about what it is we are doing. In fact, there was a Harvard medical study that said about 47% of the time, almost half the time, when you are doing something, you're actually thinking about something else, right? So that means while you're writing an email, you're thinking about, what am I going to do for dinner, right? What am I going to eat? When you're driving your car, you're actually thinking about, a fight you had with someone a year ago. So your mind tends to wander. That's why meditators, we call our mind the monkey mind. That's why we have a picture of this cute monkey over here. Now, we have between 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. So consider that monkey really hopping from branch to branch. You have 60 to 80,000 branches a day. Now, over 99% of those thoughts, you are not going to remember at all. Yet during that moment, it is overwhelming. It seems like that is the most important thing in your life, is that one thought. What mindfulness does is it allows us to be an observer of our own mind. It is a training that allows us to basically notice that we are not our thoughts. We don't have a lot of control over those 60 to 80,000 thoughts that just pop up into our heads every single day. But what we do have control over is our reaction to those thoughts. And so what I want you to think about in this monkey analogy is, well, every time we're practicing mindfulness, we're taking this monkey and we're putting that monkey on a stool. Now, the first few times you put that monkey on the stool, what's it gonna do? It's gonna immediately jump off that stool. Monkeys are not trained to be on those stools, right? But the more and more you do it, the more and more accustomed that monkey gets to be putting on that stool. Maybe after 50 times, maybe after 100 times, you take that monkey, you put it on the stool, and it's able to stay on the stool for a minute before jumping off, right? That's the goal here. It's not about how much time it can stay on the stool or how often it jumps off. It's more about noticing that your mind has really went from focusing on something to not focusing on it, and then bringing it back there in a non-judgmental way. That's all mindfulness training is. Putting that monkey back on that stool, training it to be on that stool over and over again. And so we have a question here. Well, how long do we stay in a meditative state when practicing mindfulness? That is an excellent question. Well, one of the things that you want to note is that you could be mindful for a half second, right? Taking one deep breath is a moment of mindfulness. At the same time, you could also practice mindfulness for hours a day. There's no set period of time, but what I want you to think about it is a rep at the gym. You are building a muscle just like any other muscle in your body. This one just happens to be your mind. Now, similar to the gym, if you go to the gym and right when you leave, right, you feel good. You're gonna feel better. Well, chances are, if you practice mindfulness even just one time, you're gonna feel better after you do it. However, if your goal for going to the gym is to get fitter, to get healthier, to lose weight, whatever it is, just one time is not gonna do it. The same thing holds true for mindfulness. It's gonna feel great after one time, but to actually see the effects of it in your day-to-day life, that needs to be a habit. And so what I recommend people to do is start out small, start out 5 to 10 minutes once or twice a day. And if you don't have time to do that, chances are we say you should double it then, because it seems like then you need mindfulness even more. You have a very busy life. And so what you want to do is carve out time, protect it, but then also insert those moments of mindfulness throughout the day. All right, let's answer a couple other questions. How do we respond to thoughts that enter our minds? Follow the rabbit down the trail. How do we try to recenter? Even if we're focusing on what are we even supposed to focus on during meditation? Wow, I can tell, Angie, you are someone who likes to boom, boom, boom. Lots of questions at the same time. And these are all amazing questions. Let's unpack them one by one. Okay, one of the things that you want to do when you're looking at thoughts that are coming up while you're practicing mindfulness is trying your best not to respond. What I want you to do is think about those thoughts as clouds in the sky, right? Those clouds are continuously moving and you are there as just an observer, right? You're laying down in the grass, staring up the sky. You're seeing those thoughts just pass you by. I don't want you to cling on any of those thoughts, even if it's a good thought. Don't cling on it. A negative thought, don't cling on it, right? You are just observing those thoughts going on by. So the idea here is not to respond, both positive or negative, right? What you want to be doing in mindfulness is focusing on one single thing, right? So much of our society is focused on being this amazing multitasker, all right? As someone who studies the brain, let me tell you right now that multitasking is a myth. Your brain can't actually do it. You can only do one task at a time. When you think that you're multitasking, what you're actually doing is you're just going back and forth very fast between one thing versus the other thing. I'm looking at my inbox, now I'm taking care of my child, now I'm eating a sandwich. You're not doing them all at the same time. You're constantly jumping from one to the next, but actually makes you a little bit worse at doing all of them, right? And so what mindfulness is doing is teaching you not to multitask, to do the opposite. Single task, you're only allowed to think about one thing, focus on one thing. Now, what that one thing is can be different for different people. It could be walking, it could be listening, it could be sipping a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. Now, there is probably the one thing you've heard more than everything else that people who practice mindfulness centers on. Does anyone have an idea what that one thing is? Feel free to put it in the chat. What do people tend to focus on during mindfulness? What's that one thing? Tammy got it. Exactly right. Your breath, right? Even when we just did our first mindfulness exercise, we were focusing on exhaling, right? Deep exhalations where we were imagining tension leaving our bodies. Now, I got a harder question for this group. Right. All right. We know that people are focusing on the breath. Second question, why? Why is it the breath? What is so special about breath that makes it so that when we practice this, that is the thing that is most commonly referred to during mindfulness? Anyone have any ideas? Tammy says it's life. Absolutely. We need it. That's amazing. Yeah. Anyone else? It calms your nervous system. Great point, Jess. We just talked about it, right? Our body, our brains are able to know when we're breathing smoothly versus when we're having, very rapid breaths or fast breathing. And we can control it. Yes, yes. Okay, so everyone here is right now. Let me just paint a picture here. How many things in your body can you do voluntarily as well as involuntarily, right? You are doing it subconsciously as well as consciously. Not many, right? Breath is one of them, right? When I am asking you to take a breath, you are doing it. And then if you're still on this call, you've been breathing this entire time without even knowing you're doing it. You are doing it involuntarily. That's what makes breath so important, so special. It is literally a bridge between our conscious and our subconscious minds. Okay, so neurologically, that's extremely important. Now, on top of that, it's continuous. It is something that you can constantly expect to be there. You're constantly watching it. Another thing is it's real. I'm not asking you to imagine anything. I'm not asking you to visualize anything. It's right in front. It's right underneath your nose. You feel it in your body. It's something tangible. So you have this continuous thing that you're always doing. You have control over it. It's linking two different parts of your mind, right? It's something that's extremely special, and you're going to be doing it the entire time. That's why we ask you, focus on your breath, because that can be a very centering thought. That can be something that you can continuously focus on. And so especially for people who are new, beginning at mindfulness training, that's something we say is, well, you know what, anytime you don't understand what to do, just watch your breath, right? And as soon as you notice your mind wandering to something else, bring it back. Oh, wow, ended up thinking about what I have to do after this. Bring it back. Oh, I'm getting that pull of responsibility. I should be doing something else. Bring it back, right? Constantly refocusing on that breath. Okay, and then there's one more question. I'm loving all these questions, by the way, so keep them coming. I have a question is, what's happening physiologically when you're practicing mindfulness? So really, what's happening to your body? And so that is actually something we're gonna go over in just a moment. But the short answer is this. You are activating what's called the rest and digest system, right? The rest and the digest system counteracts the fight or flight system. So that system that's there to help you flee, to fight, to problem find, we're amazing problem finders, that gets counteracted by this system that's allowing you to rest. And so that's what we're going to be doing with it. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about what it is versus what it's not. So we know that it's that moment-to-moment awareness of the present. We talked about the fact that, half the time we're thinking about something else, and that what that that focus can be, right? It can be a feeling. Maybe you're feeling sad. You want to focus on that sadness for a moment. You're going to watch it. Even just by observing it, you're going to see the intensity of it is going to dissipate. It could be a behavior, mindful walking, mindful sipping, mindful movement, or it could be a thought, right? Maybe you want to just focus on compassion. You want to focus on sending love out to the world right now because that's what it needs. It could be that, or it could be simply just watching your breath, right? Now, a lot of times mindfulness is thought of as some type of panacea. This can cure all. And it's used for anxiety, for depression, for ADD. It's certainly helpful, but it's not a cure-all, right? This is a way of operating in the world. It's a practice. It can be done anywhere. When people ask me, where do I practice mindfulness? It's when I'm waiting for an Uber, right? It's when I'm brushing my teeth. It's when I'm on a Zoom call. You can have moments of mindfulness throughout your day. It doesn't have to be you're cross-legged sitting on top of a waterfall in the rainforest, right? Even though that's nice, it's a great picture, it doesn't have to be that. It can be simply, I just want a moment of silence. I'm gonna sit on my couch and enter in that state of mindfulness. And another thing is, it's increasingly common right now. Over 35% of all US employers are using it. This is no longer a fringe benefit just for the Googles and of the world and things like that. This is something that, auto parts places are doing, General Mills, all over the country. This is something that's extremely important, right? So over a third of companies are practicing in some type of mindfulness training because it's effective, it's useful. Right. One of the things that it's not part of a religion, and that's part of the reason why it's gaining momentum right now. As our society becomes less religious in nature, we still need things to make us feel that we're part of something bigger, right? When you take a dip into mindfulness, you're feeling yourself become part of something larger, right? You're feeling your consciousness dip into something bigger. And on top of that, you're actually, what you're doing is you're doing breathing exercises that are making changes in your body. So although you might hear it associated with Eastern religions like Buddhism, it's not religion. It's not faith. This is concrete science. And there was a study done by Harvard Medical that actually showcased that you can actually change how your mind is wired just by doing it for 8 weeks through a process called neuroplasticity. So you're actually reshaping your mind and you're mitigating what we call the negativity bias. And what that is negativity bias means negative information has much more of an impact on you than positive information. It's the reason why if I ask you to think about a news headline that you've heard in the past week, chances are it's going to be negative. It's going to be about the economy. It's going to be about politics. It's going to be about Ukraine, right? It's not going to be positive. And it's the same reason when if you have a fight with a relative or a loved one, it's going to take a lot more positive interactions with that person before it mitigates it. The University of Chicago actually did a study on this. The ratio is 5-1. Every negative interaction you have with someone, it takes 5 positive interactions to counteract it, right? That's called the negativity bias. Our mind is great at finding problems, at interpreting negative effects. It does it to protect you. It does it so that you won't find yourself in harm. But what it does is it affects our ability to become optimistic, right? And so when we practice mindfulness, what we are doing, we're retraining our minds to not be so reactive to things that come to us, as well as to focus on things such as positivity, such as optimism and compassion, and really let those be our drivers. All right, we have a comment here from Donald saying, we have seemed to develop a lot of new psychological knowledge, but current office layouts are throwback to the 50s of field of desks. Is this counterproductive when we are trying to be mindful or focused? Okay, so let me try to understand your question a little bit more. It seems like you're talking about the geographic spacing of desks, and that even though we have this growing body of knowledge about psychology, is this counterproductive, how our desks are laid out or how offices are laid out versus our ability to focus? Well, one of the things I like to say here is, well, with mindfulness, right, you can have someone sitting right next to you, and you're still able to enter a mindful state, simply by putting on headphones, simply by just trying to get those distractions out of the way. You can go for a walk and do mindful walking where you're paying attention to every time your toes and your heel hits the floor, right? There are moments where that you can practice mindfulness regardless of what the external geographic, setup looks like. And one of the things I will say is more and more you are seeing wellness rooms in common office setups where they're made for meditating. They're made for people to take a moment and actually be away from their screens, because we know that being in front of a screen is affecting our ability to focus. Let me talk a little bit about the benefits of mindfulness, and then we're going to end because it's already almost time for us to close. But some of the things that we do know that are scientifically proven is over a third of people who practice mindfulness that in a work setting, they had significant reductions in stress, over 20%. So if you feel that you have a lot of stress in your life, you're looking for a tool that can help with stress, mindfulness is one of those, right? It can help with stress. It can add empathy, compassion to each other, because when you're in a mindful state, you're much more open, you're in a better mood, and you're focusing on compassion, you're focusing on empathy, you're focusing on making the world better. And so that allows you to really feel that way even when you're not practicing mindfulness. It can increase trust amongst employees. That's a huge one right now, as we're seeing the great resignation. Millions of people are leaving their jobs. So mindfulness is a way to actually build some culture and relationship between colleagues. And then finally, if you've ever had writer's block, you've ever not felt creative in that moment, here's a way to redirect your focus and to spark those levels of creativity. And so all of those are very powerful things that mindfulness can help in the work setting. And then one last thing I want to end with is a story. Actually, before I go to this quote, I'm going to tell you a little bit of background about this story. So there's a guy, you might have heard of him. His name is Dan Harris. Dan Harris was an anchor. He still is. He's an anchor on TV for Good Morning America, Nightline News. He's been in a lot of different news programs. Now, he had a panic attack live on air in front of 5 million people, right? And it was so bad that he couldn't read the teleprompter that was only a couple of feet away from him. And so what he wanted to do was he wanted to better understand his mind so that would never happen again. And so what that led him down the rabbit hole was he suddenly became extremely aware of mindfulness training. He studied it. He actually dedicated the next part of his life to it. You might have heard of this book, 10% Happier. He's the author of it, and he has a company based on it too. And so this is his first time conducting mindfulness. This is what he described it as. He said, well, that rigorous brain exercise, rep after rep of trying to tame this runaway train of the mind, this repeated attempt to bring that compulsive thought machine to heel was like holding a live fish in your hands. This was a badass endeavor. And so that's exactly what we're going to do again. We're going to do this badass endeavor. We're going to hold this live fish in our hands, and we're going to enter that meditative state. And then once we're in that state, I'm going to ask you a couple questions to ask yourself from that new perspective. And then we're going to end and get out of that meditative state. But before we do, let me see if there are any other questions or comments before we end today's session, because we have about 10 minutes left. So I want to make sure I field any last questions before we do. And another thing I want to do as well is in the chat right now, I'm just going to put a link. And so everyone on this chat has free access to a mindfulness platform that my startup called Suki actually created, where we highlight dozens of different mindfulness experts, as well as psychologists, sleep experts, things like that, for comprehensive employee wellness. And so there's complimentary access in the platform. Feel free to sign up if you'd like. Yeah, and so I have a question. Can you tell us briefly how and what Suki is doing? Essentially, we're corporate wellness consultants that has a software and a platform. And so essentially what we do is we work with entire companies to monitor and track the culture of their company, the emotional pulse of how they're feeling. And then what we do is, based on the data that we collect, we give them recommended actions, including access to these courses. And these courses include live experiences with therapists, with thought leaders on management and productivity, entering flow, time management, sleep optimization. And so we connect people. We're connectors of these employee wellness experts onto our platform that then get connected to different corporate audiences. So we get offered as a benefit for different types of companies. And right now we're in about 50 different companies, and we're hoping to grow. And so doing startup things is something that helps us do that. And so we've been incubated a few times, and we've gone through a couple rounds of funding, and we're about to go through another one right now. All right. Well, with that, what I want to do is I'm going to introduce you to my absolute favorite breathing technique. This one is perfect if you ever have those nights where it's hard to fall asleep and you need to find something to help you fall asleep. This is going to be helpful. It is also great if you're ever feeling emotionally overwhelmed. Let's say you're getting extremely angry or extremely sad. This is a great way to recenter you. And so what this technique is, and also another reason why I love it, it's simple. It's extremely simple. What we are going to do, I'm going to invite you to sit up again to the edge of your seat. Looks like everyone's camera is off. That's perfect. Don't have to worry about anyone looking at you. And what you're going to do is, while your feet are separated, you're sitting up straight. I want you to take your right hand and just make a fist with your thumb facing outwards. Right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our thumb and put it under our right nostril. Very important, you do it under your right nostril. This is going to allow you to trigger that rest and digest system. And we're going to take about 8 to 10 deep breaths with our eyes closed, only through our left nostril. What that's going to do, it's going to catapult us into this dream-like state. And from there, I'm going to ask you a few questions, and that's it. Okay, let's stand up straight, or sit up straight, legs apart so we can feel our feet on the floor. Right hand, make that fist. Bring it under our right nostril. Close your eyes. Breathe in. Out. In. Out. In. Out. In. Out. In. In. Out. In. In. Now take your right hand down, place it on your right knee. See how your body. From this state, ask yourself, in this moment, how are you defining yourself? Who are you right now? What are your goals? What do you want from life? Taking a moment to imagine your utopia, your ideal version of the world. Who's in it? And what are they doing? What's one thing you can do today or this weekend that can help build towards that goal? That can help make that dream come to fruition. Let's end with one last deep breath. Biggest one you're going to take this whole week. Breathing in and out. When you're ready, opening your eyes. Thank you for your time. Thank you for having me as a speaker. I hope you found today's session both informative and cathartic. Thanks.
Thank you, Raul. Thank you so much. That was really very powerful.
Yeah, no problem. Glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Does anybody have any final questions for Raul or thoughts?
Can he answer that last one?
Oh, we
Most
did have one
profound.
last one about what was the your most profound learning while you were in 10 days of silence?
It's hard to sum it up in a learning, but I will say your thoughts of who your personality change a little bit, because when you don't have to say anything, right? You get to observe what your actual thoughts are and kind of contrast it to, well, what would I actually say if I was talking? And so just seeing the difference between what you actually verbalize versus what you think is an interesting experiment.
Thank you. That came from the group here in person here on the 3rd floor of 500 West Fifth. So thank you so much. You've had a lot of really interesting experiences, Raul. You've really done so much.
Appreciate it.
I'm glad to hear that Suki is continuing to grow and doing well.
Thanks.
Nice fundraising.
Should I ask that?
Well, he's out of his meditation now.
So, well, can I tell him who's here?
Yeah.
So Chris Jones is here, and one of our mentors.
Hey, Raul.
Hey,
So-
Chris, good to hear from you again.
Yeah, man.
Chris is one of our angels, and so we appreciate him.
I appreciate you guys. Are you embarking? I mean, are you embarking on more fundraising or?
We're gearing up for a seed plus round of about $1 million, and our goal is to get to $1 million in annual recurring revenue by the next year and a half, and do a Series A.
That's exciting.
That's great, Raul. That's wonderful. Glad to hear that. And thank you so much for providing the complimentary access, Suki.com, Suki platform. Cami, I hope you got that written down.
Can she email that to us?
Yes, we will email that to you.
Mhm.
We'll email it to everyone that was registered today for the session. All right, well, we hope you'll come back and visit us
Can we
sometime.
ask one
in
more
person.
question?
Oh, we have one more question from the room here.
How can we help him?
Oh, how can we help you?
If you know any companies that are looking for some added employee wellness, whether it's mindfulness or workshops or digital retreats, please pass on our information. We're always looking to grow our clients.
Got it. Okay. That's something that we could certainly be on the lookout for. We'll put that in the blog, because we do a blog after all of these. We'll put that in the blog. Perfect.
All right. Well, have a good day, everybody. It was good to see everyone again.
Thank
Raul.
you. Good to see
All
you
right.
too, Raul. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I wonder if he's, I'm sure he probably does